This is the Three Skeevers podcast.
All right, episode 17 of the Three Skeevers podcast with Grim from Grim's Forge Gaming and myself, Icy, with Icyfire Gaming. How are you doing, Grim?
Good. How are you?
I'm doing great. I just started my mythic hunts a couple days ago, so I've got the Bloodlord's Embrace, and I'm about to get my Snow Treaders after we're done recording this episode here. But we have a special guest today, Kuroyuki ESO. How you doing, man?
Doing good. I'm doing good. How are you? Even though we just went over that.
But they don't know that, so we're good. So I'll start off with a question for you guys. From last week's episode, I was talking with our boy Zero Moss, the pleb slayer down in the sewers, and we were talking. He'll like that. We were we were talking about the conversation we were having about skills being morphed and that type of thing, and he made an interesting suggestion where the way the morph should be is the baseline, like the skill itself, its baseline form should already be good enough, and the two additional morphs should do two things completely. What do you guys think about that?
I mean, I had a big conversation with some other friends about morphs and whatnot when it comes to abilities, and I think that definitely the base skill needs to be good enough to warrant slotting in the first place. Otherwise, some people won't even ever slot it to morph it to begin with. But I definitely feel like some of the effects on some of these skills, these morphs, are just not quite robust enough to really make it feel like it's a more powerful upgraded ability. You know, something simple like makes this do 10% more damage and, you know, reduce the cost or something. I feel like that's interesting enough, so I can get behind that.
And before you answer, Grim, so, and I hope I'm doing Zero justice here, because his idea was that you should essentially have three options. Like the base skill should already be good enough, but if you don't want the base skill, then you can opt to either say morph 1 or 2. So then you have three options, because right now, if you don't morph it, you're just selling yourself short.
Oh, I get what you mean. You mean like
Yeah.
It should be something completely unique from the other two, and then it should be like a completely different skill, or at least different enough to be okay. So like actually incentivize not morphing a skill at some point. That could be pretty interesting.
Yeah, I think that's what he's getting at. I should have asked him for an actual example of what's a current skill now, and then what would be two morphs that you would like to see as an example. But we'll probably talk to him after that. But what do you think, Grim?
Yeah, I think so. So I think it would help with class diversity, number one. But number two, like right now, all your class abilities start out as magic abilities, right? Or free or health, right? Most are magic abilities. And so it'd be interesting. I think the starting ability should probably be based off of, you know, if your max stat is stamina, then your base ability should be stamina, and then the two options, you know, one of the options be another variant of stamina, or if you want to go the hybrid route, you have a magicka variant. And I know that's starting to get a little difficult but it's just kind of strange that everything starts out as magicka, all the base abilities. So there's that. And then the other thing is, we still don't have a magic and stamina version of all of the class abilities as it stands. Like there's no stamina whip for DK, and I know everybody's been talking about that forever, but you know, it's just really weird. Like, where's that at? We've got a base magicka whip, and then we got two magicka options. And so I don't know, there's weird things like that. I think that in the moment that you're going to talk about this topic, I think that needs to be one of the first things addressed, right? Let's get a magicka and stamina version of everything available for class build diversity.
Yeah, and honestly, with the whole CP changes that they're doing with the whole constellation tree, I wouldn't be surprised if this was something that they actually do address, say next year for 2022. because I know this year's already going to be pretty big with all the changes that they're doing now. But it sounds like this could be something like really big or really huge quality of life changes for the whole game, and addressing all skills and what they should be in terms of having one magic and one stamina. If that's something that they want to do, I could see that being looked at in the future.
That'd be really nice for sure. But I do want to say, Grim, you got to be careful with that stam whip talk. All right, there's people out there, they'll hunt you down, man. All right.
Yeah, I'm sure.
We already got Stone Giant. You need 2 now. Just look out.
Right. And everybody's super impressed with Stone Giant, so
Oh yeah, best skill in the game.
yeah. What so have you been spending time on the PTS server?
I have spent a little bit of time on the PTS, not a whole lot, mostly just to duel some folks and to assert dominance with a certain skill. All right, so if a friend said that Deep Slash was a better skill than Power Slam, and I had to go on PTS to prove him wrong. It had to be done. But other than that, not really too much PTS time for me. It's not really my thing, I guess. Like, I would kind of prefer to wait until I see finalized changes before I start getting too wrapped up in the week 1 stuff, because the week 1 stuff never stays the same, you know?
Yeah, and right now I'm seeing some really scary screenshots of some stat-based builds, like 9k weapon damage and 6k health recovery with, 30k health and 33k stamina. And you see that and you're just like, oh, it's going to be a whole new world if that sticks,
Which is exactly why I don't really want to get too attached to what's going on there now, because there's no way that kind of stuff is gonna make it through, or at least I hope not. If it does, Lord help us.
Right. Yeah, it's going to be interesting. I think the most exciting thing for me is the fact that they announced new servers, and that's something we had all been hoping and praying for. So so how long have you been playing ESO, and what got you into PvP? Like, how long were you playing ESO and then you started playing PvP?
Well, I first got into ESO. It was either mid to late 2016, I believe. And PvP pretty much immediately is what I did. Like, I messed around in PvE for a little bit, but then I had some friends that I had made around level 20, 30-ish start talking about what PvP was like in ESO, and I was like, oh man, I really want to go check that out. And so I eventually convinced this handful of friends to take me in there and, show me what it was all about. And by the end of the night, they had left already. They had gone to sleep, and I was still just enjoying my time there. I was joining up with all the big groups, knocking some heads around, just having fun. Like, my friends, they weren't having it. They got bored in about an hour, but I was there, And I joined a guild. It was the Ebonheart Night's Watch. It was a bunch of Aussie dudes that played on EP late at night, every night. It was so fun. I used to just under 50 PvP for days, for weeks, months before I ever actually did anything else. So
yeah, I'm a big fan too. Under 50 PvP. I probably leveled at this point 80 characters to CP and then deleted them. And it's playing a class, a different play style, or whether it be magic or stamina. Let's try different gear sets and see how it works. And, wins the curve on that class. Like, right around level 30, this class gets really strong because of this or whatever. So I feel you on that. Like, under 50 BGs is a lot of fun, and Cyrodiil. So would you say your content right now is pretty exclusive to PvP, or are you interested in trials and PvE type content for your channel?
when it comes to like uploading videos, I don't really see myself ever really getting into PvE type content, because there's already guys that do that, and they will know way more than I will, and ever will, really. Like, I might dip my toes into PvE every now and then if I'm streaming, but I don't think it's ever really going to show up on my YouTube channel, to be honest. I'm pretty comfortable with PvP, and it's what I know. It's what I've been doing for years, so that's what I post.
Yeah. So YouTube right now, are you looking to, or are you currently doing YouTube Live? Are you entertaining Twitch? Are you doing Twitch right now? where can people find you right now? Is it just on YouTube?
Well, I've just recently started getting into Twitch. I was doing YouTube Live for a long time, but then I had some friends say that streaming on Twitch is just more fun and more active, and it feels more like a community. So I started up over there, and they were definitely right. There's definitely like a fun community over there on Twitch, and they're super helpful and nice people. So I've definitely started to really enjoy my time over there, and it's been a lot of fun for sure.
Yeah. What content creators do you like before you started creating content? Who did you watch? What do you like watching? Is there a specific class that you like or a specific content creator that you really remember watching a lot of?
Well, you've got the Holy Trinity. You know, you've got Cypher PK and Deltia, and well, man, was there a third one? I think it was just the two of them. Actually, I guess it wasn't a Holy Trinity. But either way, those two for sure. All like for the longest time when I first started. I still go back and watch some of their videos, but then for a while, I just those guys all they left. So I started watching a lot of people on my platform because I'm an Xbox guy. So I started watching people like Baker of Cakes, who has stopped playing the game but just recently came back. Stamina Dragonite guy named It's Alob, really cool dude. He actually just came back to play with me for a little bit. He stopped playing like a year ago now. Is There No One Else? I'm sure you guys know Is There No One Else. He's the king of ESO YouTube, in my opinion. Absolute legendary man. And he's like my ESO dad. Love that guy. And then there's, the homeboys like King of Games. And I used to really like Despotic before he started playing Black Desert. I watch everyone really. Like I watch any class. Even if I don't play the class, I just like to watch PvP. I like to watch good PvPers doing good PvP. I find it fun. I feel like I learn things.
Yeah. The Holy Trinity, do you think it would have been, so that third person, would that have been King Richard or would that have been Fangrush?
Oh, there we go. Okay, that's the question, isn't it? Probably Fingrush, although King Richard was always great, but I was never much of a Stamsork guy. So those two, they were always Stamsork dudes. I did like a lot of King Richard when he was playing Stamina Templar, though. That was for sure. I enjoyed his stuff at that point.
Yeah. 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 Let's see. So have you ever had a chance to run into any of those guys you named? And can you give us any story about those meetings and stuff like that?
Well, the PC guys never, sadly. Maybe one day. But when I found content creators on my platform, I would always message them because I was a little weirdo back in the day, So I would always try to message them, and be friends with them and stuff. And they'd always message back. They were always really nice guys. I remember I ran into the guy I mentioned before, It's Alob, Stam DK guy. I ran into him once on my DK. He was on another faction, and we dueled for a little bit. And he like gave me some build advice. He's like, "Hey, what are you running?" I was like, "I'm using Shacklebreaker." And he's like, "Oh yeah, don't do that. Don't use Shacklebreaker." And I was like, "Oh, okay. Well, what would you suggest?" And he's like Spriggans or Truth, all this stuff. And he gave me some suggestions, and I took them, and I got better at the class. And so I definitely, I cherish all the little interactions I've had with these folks. And people like Is There No One Else? I would see him in PvP very rarely. He had no idea who I was. His group would typically steamroll me because I was just kind of there. But after a while, I messaged him, I talked to him, and he just has always been kind of there, being ESO dad to me now. I'll have good interactions with him. I'll see him on a different faction. We'll fight people together. Always a lot of fun to run into those guys.
Yeah.
Have you, or will you consider swapping over to PC?
I'm already in the process. Okay, I need a level still. Like I just started on the leveling process, but it's gonna happen. I've got the account. I've got my characters. A couple of them made. I've got my important things like my any race, any alliance. All that good stuff, and I'm ready. I'm just kind of waiting for the next double XP event before I really take the plunge. Although I actually do plan on trying to at least get into a comfortable position for the no proc tests that are coming up pretty soon, because I'd really like to play on the PC servers for the no proc tests and PvP for a little bit. So
Yeah,
I
that's
might
exciting.
try to soon. Yeah, really exciting. Real fun stuff.
Yeah. That's exciting with you coming to PC. If you need help leveling, let us know. We know a guy. It's Icy's probably the guy, or one of us is the guy, but we can we can help you level. So, and we like leveling in a PvP environment, so it would be down in Imperial City or the sewers or Cyrodiil, or just doing BGs and stuff like that. But if you need help, let us know.
For sure. I've actually always preferred leveling in PvP anyway. I feel like it'd be really fun to get some lobby PvP like footage as well for the channel or something, kind of an adventure, my journey on PC 1 to 50 PvP.
Yeah, I like that idea. That would be cool. Whenever I have a new build coming out, or I'm kind of theorize a build for end game, and I'm leveling a new character, I'll actually do like a level 20 or 30 BG teaser, and then I'll do a level 40 to 45 BG teaser of the build, and then I'll release the actual build at CP with proof of life, like a battleground. So that's been working out well for me. It gets people excited, for a build coming out.
I'm not sure what it is, but I I could level down in the sewers hours on end, no problem. And you wouldn't catch me not 1 minute within Skyreach trying to level.
Right.
Because like I know I get bored pretty quickly and I'll just wind up falling asleep, which has
Same.
happened multiple times. But man, there's just something about Skyreach that I just hate being in there. And another actual reason is I hate how you're so dependent on another person, because that second guy that's got to carry you through it is such a selfless act
Right.
to take the time to
Mhm.
level somebody else up. Whereas when you're in the sewers, I think what was that? What was my record, Grim? 6.5 hours of making a new character. I get it to CP.
Yeah, yeah. The EXP down there is way underrated, and
Hmm.
just the imminent chance that you could be attacked. And at the end of the day, if you want to be good at PvP, then you might as well be leveling in a PvP atmosphere. So,
For sure. That's actually where I got my first character to CP, was down in the sewers. I remember I found my one little spot that had a bunch of mobs in it, so I just kind of hid in the corner because I was terrified, and I would kill the mobs, and I just wait there, get my stones, get my key fragments, that whatever they were called back then, the planar scraps and all that fun stuff, and I just do it over and over again, and eventually I got CP, and then I never played the character again.
Nice.
so Icy, we asked him if he had ever run into other content creators and what that was like. Have you run into other content creators? Do you have a story?
Are you talking about my Grim Hollow experience?
Yeah, your Grim Hollow, or a Sinful Duck story, or um, the Grim Hollow one's pretty darn funny though.
Yeah. So the Grim Hollow one took place. Oh, honestly, it might even be this weekend last year, because it was early February when. So a little bit more background story. In January of 2020, I was learning, because I started back in September 2019, and then I met Grim in December, and then around January I was trying to learn Nightblade and stuff. So I had Grim gave me one of his builds I was practicing and using, and he said, "Hey, you should check this guy out. He's really good at Nightblade." And it was Grim Hollow's videos, and I was like, "Oh wow, this guy's really cool. Like it's like a dance when he's fighting all these groups of players 1vxing and killing them all. It's really awesome." So having watched a lot of his videos in January, I went into Cyrodiil on my melee support Stam DK, and I was doing some work on that character, just like practicing my CC rotations with stuns and immobilize. So I go out to Cyrodiil with one of my guilds, and I'm like, all right, I'll show everybody what I got, my stuns and CCs and all that jazz. So I run towards the keep because there were some DC players fighting EP, and I go to the bottom of it and I see this little shrimpo guy. I'm like, all right, let's get it on, man. So I gap close in with my shield assault, hit him with the immobilize, and then at that moment, for whatever reason, time slowed down for me, and I saw the name. It said Grim Hollow, and I said, "Oh heck no!" I just immediately roll dodged out, apologized, and walked out of the little keep corner thing. And then some dude was like, "Hey, what's up?" I was like, "Oh, no, nothing. Just nothing's in there. Let's just get out of here." So that was my first Grim Hollow experience. I didn't want anything to do with that because I didn't want to wind up like any of the Xers in his video that just get destroyed.
Yeah.
That's respectable. Sometimes I watch old videos and I'm like, I wonder if I'm in any of these getting killed. Let me just check, because I know I was quite a little zergling back in the day for sure.
Yeah. Talking about that, it's less likely to happen now, like as your skill set raises. And you had mentioned him earlier, Cypher PK, but he was one of the first content creators to whisper this. And I really respected the heck out of him because of it. But he said, you don't 1vx good players, and the reason being is good players are on their CCs. They're making it a resource issue. They're hard to evade, and it just doesn't happen. And you'll sit out in Cyrodiil around your favorite rock, and you'll record for 10 hours and might only get one good clip, and that one good clip is the one that makes it on YouTube and everyone sees, and they think it's that easy. And I really respected him for actually saying that, that I thought that was a good message. But yeah, Cypher PK, what a beast. I ran into him a couple times in Cyrodiil, and he was a handful, an absolute handful. Is there who's the handful that you run into right now? Like, if you see them, are you able to name drop anybody that it's going to be a fight when you run into them?
If I'm being honest, and this is honestly kind of depressing for me, it's there really isn't like a single person like that for me, mostly because all of the people that I know that play solo and are good players, we don't really fight each other. We'll run into each other and we'll wave hello and we'll walk away. What I have a bigger problem with is the small groups, the 2, 3, 4 mans of really, really sweaty players that just don't like me for some reason. That's when I know I'm about to have a hard time, because they're all 40k HP, 5 procs on the build, all that good stuff, and they'll just chase me down. I literally had some people chase me for 25 minutes. 25 full minutes from one side of Cyrodiil to the other. I was just trying to kite away. I kept on giving them the slip, but they just kept on hunting me back down, and it was the worst. And yeah, so solo players, I don't know. We don't fight. I'm sure that there are some out there that could absolutely destroy me if they wanted to, but they don't. So
yeah, I kind of noticed that. I was watching like Nolan Kirchhoff and Fuzzy Juggernaut, and there seems to be a respect for those solo players. Other solo players respect others, and when they want to fight, they will. They let each other know, hey, let's duel right here in the district or whatever. But most of the time, it's a nod of the head, and then they go about their way hunting, the groups. And so I could see that happening on console. On PC, I haven't seen a whole lot of that yet, but I don't know. That's interesting. That was one of the things I noticed.
it definitely comes with time.
I was just gonna see if we can go back to your comment earlier about you can't 1vx good players. I feel I think it all the time, but to me it just seems like an insult, or people take it offensively when you say that. Does that sound about right? You think that's appropriate?
Yeah, I bet some good players are like, oh hell no. But it's not personal. It's just,
Like,
could you imagine a group of 10 good players and then you have one exceptional player against the 10 good players? I just don't see it happening, and neither did Cypher, so.
yeah.
Yeah, it's very rare. The most I've
And
ever done was, oh, sorry, go ahead.
oh yeah, I'll just finish that real quick, because I feel like people take it as an insult, but equally, just one person fighting 10 people, even if they're all light attacking, you just can't straight up tank them. Well, I guess in some instances you can, depending on your build, but you still have to finesse it, and you still have to showcase your skills to kill those 10 players. Because I think back to, I think it was just last weekend. It was me, Mio, and Lanth, and we 3v12'd these group of AP or AP, I guess they turned into AP, a group of EP, and it was a fight. Obviously, our 3-man like skill level was a lot higher than theirs, but if we let off the gas for any fraction of a second, we would have been dead. Of course, they were PvEers, but they still put up a fight. We still had the line of sight and do the appropriate things that we needed to kill them. So like there's still skill there to 1vx, 3vx, whatever it is, whenever you're in an outnumbered situation and you're going against a group of players who lack the PvP experience. So I don't think it's a bad thing when people say, oh, well, you can't 1vx good players. That I don't know, those are my thoughts, I guess, on the whole thing.
I feel like it really depends highly on what your definition of good is, because I feel like there's a big difference between good and experienced and smart. Because I feel like even if you are a player that knows your rotation, knows how to stay alive, knows how to kill people, if you aren't quite smart enough or quick on the thinking, you'll definitely get caught slipping sometimes. Like, for instance, you could be 3 or 4 deep and you're chasing a solo player, and he'll jump off of a tower, and you'll chase him jumping off a tower. And now you're down at 10% HP, and he hits you with a dragon leap, and you're dead because you just didn't think. So you'll definitely sometimes catch people, and typically in those situations you'll get the one guy. And then you're like, okay, that's it. It's over. I win. Because at that point, you're not gonna trick anybody else typically, and you're probably not gonna win, outright regular. So I feel like if you manage to get that one guy, just catch him slipping, get him with something sneaky, that's a victory. I'll take it.
Yeah, Icy had a similar experience in the sewers where a guy jumped off. Wasn't it you, Icy? The guy jumped off and then Dawnbreakered the first person that followed him.
Oof. I mean, when Kudo set that example, I did think of, I think it's over by the DC side, the third zone where the boss is, where you have to drop down below.
Yeah, that's the story right there.
Oh, okay. Yeah. I cause like when he said it, it just like, it put a smile on my face. Cause I was like, how many times can I practice that move? And so I could just bait people into doing it. I'll just hang out by the ledge. And then when somebody drops down or when they approach me, I just jump off and then they chase me and I already have an ult ready and then boom.
Right.
I think it'd be kind of funny.
I feel like it works best with Dragon Leap because you bring yourself down to low HP, and then they fall down. You jump them, pop a pot real quick. You're right back up to full HP, and you can continue the slamming.
Yeah. Yeah, another thing on that 1vxing situation too is there is a great equalizer in the game right now, and that's proc sets. And proc sets is definitely bridging the gap between the skill gap. And if you took 10 not so great PvPers and gave proc sets to all 10 of them, that's going to be a really hard fight, because it's very easy to get proc down right now. And so I'd have to say the proc sets are the great equalizer. And if you had a group of 10 people with that, and even if they were bad, that's trouble. And so you have that running around. But if it were 10 people that didn't have proc sets and didn't have PvP experience, that's probably going to be a clip for somebody. So
most definitely, proc sets are the best way to ruin a solo player's day.
Yeah. Do you think that's the intent? Unintentionally or intentionally? Do you think that was the intent of proc sets? Because we're in like the second or third proc set meta right now.
See, I feel like partially yes, but when the solo players decide to also take the dive into proc sets, then it's quite ridiculous. Like you can do something like throw on Crimson, Savara's Scales, and the Vadishran 2H with Malacath on a Stamina Warden with 40k HP, and you can 1v25, like even if they are fully spec'd out with procs and stuff, because the class on top of the power of the procs is just so ridiculous together that you can do some crazy stuff. So I feel like, yes, if you're a player like me who prefers to just build for stats, you are at a severe disadvantage, and I feel like that is by design. But if you use the new stuff that ZeniMax brings out, because they love to bring out really, really balanced stuff, then you can stand on the same pedestal as these guys, and you could probably use it better. Like things like Crimson, it's one of the only proc sets, if not the only proc set, that is, I feel like tailor-made for solo players, because it heals you depending on how many people are around you at the time. So if you've got somebody in a group of 25 and they're all wearing Crimson, but they're only attacking you, what are they really gaining from that? 2,000 healing? But me, if I use it and I have 12 people hitting me, then I'm going to get all of my health bar back, So it's simple stuff like that. I feel like they just wanted to make proc sets a thing again, because I feel like proc sets do need to be in the game. I feel like they're cool, they're unique, and they're interesting, but I feel like they're just way too strong for either side to use.
Yeah, we had talked about proc sets in the last episode with Sinful Duck, and a friend of ours, Fuzzy Juggernaut, had brought this up, but it was a topic that we talked about, in that what if, the proc set in the PvP side of things was nerfed or adjusted separately, and all you would do is just go into the battle spirit. If you looked over the battle spirit debuff or buff, whatever you want to call it, that for PvP, and one of the lines in the battle spirit at the bottom, it just says, some proc sets are adjusted for PvP performance or balance, and just left it at that. And so if you looked at Crimson or whatever it is, if you looked at it outside of PvP anywhere in the world, its tooltips would read this, but the second you go into a BG, Imperial City, or Cyrodiil, and you were to hover over your armor and look at it, the proc would be different in PvP. And we thought, well, maybe that's the answer. That's how because if you adjust that set outside of PvP, maybe not that set, but other sets, if you adjust other proc sets outside of PvP, you'll make the Trials teams mad. You'll make a lot of PvEers mad. And I think that there's a larger population of PvEers than PvPers. But some of these sets need to be adjusted in PvP. And so if you were to just make it, as soon as you step into the PvP environment, those sets are adjusted, I think that would make all the PvPers happier, at least the ones that operate from a stat-based builds and skill set, they expect skill-based PvP. But we talked about that in the last episode. Do you think that's a viable answer?
See, I do and I don't at the same time, okay? I have a bit of a controversial, I guess, in the PvP community opinion when it comes to things like procs and things like Malakath and all that. And I feel like it's not the gear itself that is the problem. I feel like it's all the things that we have that can attribute to making that gear more powerful than it is. Like, you can use things like Malakath with proc sets. You can use multiple proc sets at the same time. The proc sets all stack with each other, so if you've got 5 people using the same one, you're going to have 5 of that. And CP gives you direct percentage modifiers to proc damage, right? So there's all these things that are just making proc sets extremely oppressive. And I feel like while, yes, some of the specific sets need to be looked at and toned down, I feel like a lot of them wouldn't be as powerful if they took away things like Malakath scaling procs specifically, like make Malakath only affect your skills. I feel like that would be a great change. With the reduction of all the percentage damage from the CP, because we're losing a whole lot of that, I feel like we're going to see proc damage go down a whole lot as well, because we're getting, you're seeing more stat-based builds on these screenshots and stuff. You're not seeing people with the procs as much, because procs aren't going to be doing as much damage, because we're not going to be able to do 24% into damage over time, plus another 13 into magical damage in our CP anymore, and then throw Malakath on and have this proc that was supposed to do 10,000 damage all of a sudden doing 22,000 damage. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I like that answer. I like the answer of, it's not a hard answer. It's a pretty simple answer. Just make it to where Malakath can't affect procs. That's a big plus, that kind of pulls procs into check. And then the second thing is make sure that procs can't stack. If you already have that debuff on you or that effect on you from that set, you shouldn't be able to acquire it from another set. And if they were to do those two things, that might be the answer, to proc sets.
Exactly. And I feel that same way about pretty much any status effect or dot when it comes to PvP. I feel like if someone applies, say, noxious breath to you, and then someone else applies noxious breath to you, I don't think they should stack. I feel like in PvP specifically, it should just refresh the duration and be done with it, because that makes, when it comes down to it, things like dots aren't that's not what's really affecting the big group play. That's how people can absolutely annihilate a single player. It's all about the burst damage when it comes to the big group play. So making a change like that wouldn't really affect the groups, the big, the group players. It just make it harder for them to single out one person and ruin his day. So I don't know. That's just me. That's how I feel about it. I feel like there should just not be as many stacking debuffs as there are right now. But specifically for PvP, when it comes to PvE, yeah, everyone should be able to put the same 3 dots on people because it makes sense.
Yeah, I totally agree. So has there ever been a moment that you felt like in PvP that you've leveled up, like you could look back on it and say, this is it, this is the moment, like I definitely just gained a level here? Has there been a moment like that for you?
A very specific moment, yes, actually. It was a few patches ago, right before, no, actually, it might have been elsewhere itself. And I played Magic a Templar. And for every patch before that, I had played PvP. I had done a lot of dueling, done a lot of battlegrounds, tried to do solo PvP, but I never really committed to it. But then when Elsewhere came around, I decided that I was going to really try, and I was going to stop with all the other random shenanigans, sitting in town, wasting time that I had been doing, and try to actually get into PvP proper and become a good PvPer. And from that moment on, I found a real build to use, not just some random nonsense that I had been doing before. Because if anyone that sees this knows me, I like to do really weird builds, and I feel like you can do that once you get to a certain skill level, but before that, it's really hard. And that's kind of what I had always done. So I decided I was going to use a real build that someone had already worked out all the kinks for me, and I was going to just go out there, and I was going to spend 3, 4, 5 hours a day. Okay, so that's a little excessive, but a good bit of time on a daily basis trying to get better at PvP. And then come the next patch, I was there. I was locked in. I knew what I was going to do with my build. I knew what I was going to change. I knew how I was going to respond to new things, and it was just there. I had it. I understood all of a sudden.
Yeah. What about you, Icy? When did you level up?
Oof. I feel like I want to say maybe July 2020, 6, 7 months after we met. That's kind of when it started to really click in, and I felt at home with my skills and stuff. But even now, just when you asked him the question, I was thinking about it myself, and even the last several months, I feel like I'm still. Yeah, what do they say? You're always a student till the day you die, and the last several months, I know I'm way better than I was last year, but even now, it feels like I'm still learning a whole bunch of things. And when I do PvE content, funny enough, I'm much more calm. My nerves aren't all jittery or anything like that. And when mechanics come through, I can get through them, like the crazy ones and the vet hard mode type stuff. I just I can easily I can easily get myself through it no problem, which I think is pretty interesting. And I think it just comes from obeying all the mechanics down in the sewers and just translating to just becoming a better player in general, because you obey the mechanics, you dodge the indicators when they happen, you bash the NPCs and stuff like that. I think it all translates, so I think it's pretty cool.
I definitely agree with you there, because I'm sorry, were you going to say something, Grim? I don't want to cut you off.
Nope, I'm good.
I was going to say that about the same time that I had started doing, getting more into PvP and, actually learning and all that. I don't really do PvE stuff, but I had a girl that I played with at the time, like we do. And she was really into PvE, and she was like, "Hey, you want to do Black Rose Prison?" And I was like, "Yeah, sure. It sounds horrible. Let's do it." And so I went in there with her, and we did it on Veteran. And I don't want to say I suffered, but it didn't go like too great, but it also didn't go bad. And I was like, "Oh, that wasn't that bad. Let's do it again." And then within a few runs, me and my couple of friends were doing scoreboard runs, like pretty easy, just trying to get the gear that I won from there. And I wasn't even like a high DPS build. I was on a Nord Stamina Templar that got like maybe 60k DPS with some crafted garbage gear that I threw together for PvE, and just being able to quickly react to all the mechanics and like kind of quickly understand them really helps for sure. Like nothing makes you feel like there is nothing that can kill you quite like learning how to survive and string along a Zerg for 30 straight minutes. Like if I can stay alive versus 40 dudes with proc sets trying to kill me for a half hour, I feel like I can deal with these pre-designed scripted AIs that are going to do the same thing every time, And I feel like it's definitely healthy for people that want to do PvE to do some PvP, just to keep your mind sharp and always work on that situational awareness and the ability to react to situations quicker. Because I don't know, I feel like it definitely goes a long way in the end.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Something that's kind of along those lines, when you take a PvPer and you throw a PvPer into trials, assuming they're not somebody that works on their rotation or has a real PvE, rotation, you just take them out of PvP and put them in a trial or put them in a vet dungeon. They're going to be super durable. They're going to avoid, mechanics that can kill them. And they're, a lot of PvPers can solo vet dungeons. And in trials, when the trial goes south, it's usually the PvPers that are there at the end. And the few trials that I've done and the scenarios where it's been a wipe and I've been left, I remember we were running with some friends of ours and the trial wiped. And they were so cool because normally as soon as the trial wipes and you're the last one standing, everyone's like, just wipe, just wipe. Don't waste everyone's time. But they weren't like that. They were like, Rambo, yelling like, let's see you do it, And I love that. I was like, heck yeah, let's see if we can do it. I'm going to solo this or I'm going to res one person while the chaos is going on. And that person's going to go res someone else. And we're going to salvage this. Let's see if we can do it. And so I think the PvPers really like that, when it comes to trials and wiping, I guess. But
Yeah, those hero moments, oh, they're so good. It even happened today. We were doing Stone Garden, and I think we were on the second boss. It's one of those stone giant things, and we did that. We were doing the hard mode for that, and I think our DPS, both our DPSs, one guy was dying more than the other one, but I just kept my cool. I think there was even a point where did our tank die? No, our tank was fine. There was a point where both our DPS died, and I was totally fine. I was dodge a lightning here, dodge a lightning there, this and that. Get the res off, go to the next guy, do the same thing, just stay calm. So I thought it was pretty cool that, and I'm even using less health or different food than I normally would. I normally go in with like 24k health on my healer, but I decided just going with like 17k, just trying something new and stuff, and I didn't have any issues. I think it also might be a confidence thing too, with all the PvP and stuff, that it just kind of steals your nerves in a way.
yeah, it does. It absolutely does. What's your favorite place to PvP at right now? Do you like Cyrodiil? Do you like Battlegrounds? Do you like Imperial City? Where do you like to go?
Well, I love it all. Battlegrounds least, but I love Icy to death. But I still have to say that Cyrodiil will always have my heart. There's just so many unique places and things you can do there. So many interesting places to kite, and just you end up getting fights in the strangest places. The strangest thing, like the situations that you'll get into. Like I was at, what is it, Wayne Priory up near Coral. I was just messing around, exploring, and then 4 dudes showed up. I think they were questing, and I killed them. Of course I killed them. I couldn't just walk away and let them do whatever they were doing. It's rude of them to expect that from me. But yeah, so you don't really get that stuff in IC as much. Maybe in the sewers. Like I feel like IC up, like the districts and the sewers. I definitely feel like those are 2 completely different worlds, because the sewers has some really intense PvP and some really cool places to fight. But don't really ever find people down there. At least not often. Not often enough for it to feel like it's actually worth hanging out down there too long when it comes to specifically going out to find fights. But yeah, like if I want to get even more specific though, up near Bleakers, around that big giant town, you can get some real nice fights there. I love to hang around up there, and enemy home keeps. That's my spot. That's my stomping grounds.
Why do you dislike BGs?
Mostly because I'm not a team player. You know, I'm a solo guy. I've always been solo, and something about losing, even though I can mostly carry a team at times, it kind of sucks. You know, like because I'm not great with people. I don't really do friends. I don't really have many of those. So if I could have a full group of people to go into BGs, that'd be fine. You know, it'd be fun. But when it comes to BGs, I feel like first of all, your builds are limited because it's always no CP. And then you have to worry about the other people on your team running around and doing whatever. And then you also have to take into consideration everyone else. So with the luck of the draw, you may get 3 people that are like 120 CP that don't know what they're doing, and then have 4 people on the other 2 teams that are all werewolves with procs. And that's just not fun for the next 10 minutes. And I don't know. I guess it's the same with PvP, because you could just be riding on your mount for 10, 15 minutes going somewhere and then get immediately 50v1'd and have to do it all again. But I don't know. I guess it's a little more random outside of BGs. It's always kind of the same few things, and it's typically the same few people you find too. So I don't know. Maybe that's why. I don't know. I just don't really like it that much. I don't know.
Yeah,
Maybe I'm weird.
I like using battlegrounds to test builds. You know, put the build through a stress test, and when I'll do battlegrounds, I use it from that same. You talk about being a solo player, and so that's what I do most of the time when I'm doing a battleground, is view it as a solo player experience for me. And most of the time, I don't play the objective. I'll go into it with a list. I'm actually getting ready to do a video on this too, but I'll go into a battleground with a list of objectives, and one of them might be to create a 1v1 scenario and win a 1v1 scenario. And how many 1v1s can I create and win? Another one objective will be to win an outnumbered situation, you know, and then another objective would be to use both of my ultimates on the build, and see, stress test on the build, you know, see how low I can get in health and still recover in a fight, you know, 1v1 or outnumbered with a build, to see where its sustain and recovery's at. And so I look at battlegrounds as like your gym or your dojo. It's where you're going to go to test the build and kind of proof of life. I want to make sure that the build can hold up in a no CP scenario, and then how's it feel in CP as well. So that's helped me.
It does actually sound like a lot more fun when you think about it that way, I guess. I've just always been I used to play competitive Halo, right? So I would always try my hardest to win whatever game type it was that we were doing, capture the flag, or, you know, killing people, whatever, team deathmatch, all that fun stuff. So I guess when I go into BGs, it's kind of the same mindset kind of flicks on, and I'm like, okay, this is a deathmatch, we have to get them, you know, we have to get the kills, we have to kill everybody, we have to make them all dead, make them not alive, do it. But when it comes to the other game types, I'll still play the objective, and when the other people don't do it with me, then it just kind of feels like I'm losing time. So I don't know, maybe I should try that sometime on my own. Go in with my own objectives. Try to say, oh, let me get this many kills and make sure I don't die this many times, or let me try a new ability in here just to see if it's useful and see if I can do, you know, X with it. That might be fun. I like that mindset.
Yeah, you'll still get the people that comment, because some of my BGs where I go in with a list, I have an older BG, it's of Sword Saint, and the title of the video is "You Can't Win Them All." And I was in a group of 3 people, and it was Domination, I think, or whatever, or Crazy Kings, where the capture points respawn or spawn at different locations. And I knew real early, like, number one, I'm going to run off and do my own thing. I wasn't going to stick with these guys, because that's where I'm at. That's where we're at, right? You just run off and do your own thing. So I knew that, but I noticed that they were dying very quickly. Like they spent more time at respawn than they did on the map. And so I was like, well, we're probably not going to win, capturing points. So my personal goal at this point is to not take any deaths. I don't want to get killed. Even if that means I don't kill other people, I want to go with no deaths on this. Let's see if we can do it. And I'll do my best to play the objective, because the objective is where the people are going to come. So can I play the objective and also take no deaths in a team that is really struggling to even stay alive? And so that was my objective for the video. We didn't win the game, but I didn't take any deaths. And somebody posts a comment, congratulations, you lost the game, like what a waste of time or something like that. And it's like, you're missing the whole point of what BGs could be. It's, if you set personal goals for yourself and then achieve that, I don't know, it definitely makes BGs a lot of fun for me to do that.
So it's, I guess, certainly a topic of interest, because I had one of my buddies tell me every BG is a deathmatch. Doesn't matter what the game mode is.
Right.
And I'm sure that already unpacks a lot of information right there. But
Right.
Yeah, for sure.
but I know those comments that you're talking about, because I see them on your videos when people say things like that. And it's, I get it what you're saying, because you're trying to learn, you're trying to self-improve and stuff. But also, you're kind of excluding death matches when you get into those other game modes where you should, in quotes, play the objective, but instead you're kind of doing your own thing. I guess, does it really matter at the end of the day? I don't know. I know we're all just playing games, but somebody on the team wants to actually win. Maybe they're trying to complete their BG or their daily BG to get that reward, and we got one guy here just killing everybody. But then I guess you can also make an argument, Grim, if you're going 20-0, what the heck is the rest of your team doing that you still wind up losing?
Yeah.
If they were
Exactly.
so hung up on actually, hey Grim, can you do the objective, but you're just killing everybody, technically they should be able to get the objective done, since you're smoking everybody else, since
Yeah.
you're eliminating X amount of people from the game.
Yeah,
So
that right there. That's I have a Spartan Unleashed video where I did a BG, and I had the objectives laid out in front of me. It was a new build that I was really excited to play on, and actually my list was, I want to have some outnumbered fights and stress test the build. I wanted to use both ultimates and see where their value, was at, as far as which ultimate under what situation or what scenario where its value was. And so that's what I went into the BG doing, not knowing what I would get, random BG. And it was the same thing, Crazy Kings or whatever, with objective capturing. If you go into a Crazy King with the mindset of, I'm going to treat this as a death match, as an example, in that video, say we're purple team or whatever, and red team was ahead capturing these points, and they were going around as a full squad just capturing the points, and our team ended up coming back and winning because I was able to engage red team. It just by happenstance, red team was the team that I was harassing to meet one of my requirements. I'm going to stress test this build in an outnumbered situation. And so red team was right there. So I kept throwing myself into red team. Well, red team, something shiny, and very quickly went off of playing the objective to just trying to kill me. And so I was getting exactly what I wanted out of it. My team was getting what they wanted out of it, because red team fell behind in capturing objectives, and my team continued to go and capture the objectives. So there is value in that person that's very good at getting kills and fighting outnumbered, if they can understand their role. Like if these guys are ignoring me and I can't bait them into fighting me and moving off the objective, then that's probably not a good scenario. But if I can keep these guys busy and bait them into fighting me and tie them up, and the rest of my team is playing the objectives, we're going to win this game. And so there is that, idea too.
Definitely, but then you have to take into account the fact that sometimes your teammates don't know how to use you. You know, you could be the guy that's making it to where the whole map is free for them to run and do whatever they want, but they don't do it, and that's what makes me not exactly love Battlegrounds. It's having to rely on the other people at the end of the day that I don't know, and I have no idea if they will come through for me or not. And yeah, that's why I typically just stick to being alone. Because
Yeah,
at least I know I can count on
your
myself.
team will lose, and then they'll put something in the party chat and just say, "We would have won if you weren't treating this like a death match. You know, this is your L. You know, or you
Yeah.
lost this game." And it's like, really.
Honestly, could have made a good point. I was trying to, I guess, make some sort of argument that would help the randoms that you're grouped with when you're treating it like a death match. But at the end of the day, they're a lost cause. So keep doing what you're doing. Because
Make
no
your
matter,
own fun.
yeah, exactly. And no, you made an excellent point. If they don't know how to utilize you, what does it matter? Why try to be nice? Just play your own game at that point.
Exactly. At that point, I just look on the other team, see who has the least death, and hunt them down the whole game.
Yeah, and see, what I'll do is I'll look to see who has the most kills. You know, like you were saying, whoever has the least deaths or most kills, and they're out there causing havoc. So I want to find them. I'm going to tab target them and meet them head to head. And I really like that too, because if you're going to stress test ability, you need to stress test it against somebody else that's proven a proven player killer, right? And so go find that guy and throw yourself at him.
Exactly. At least that way you can at least have a fun fight.
Yeah. So what are you doing for Mid-Year Mayhem right now? How's Mid-Year Mayhem been treating you?
Mid-Year Mayhem has been treating me well. I'm actually really split on how I feel about Mid-Year Mayhem, though. Like, I don't know if I love it or I hate it. I kind of despise it at times because it's just, the campaigns are always full and they're always laggy. When they're working, though, I love Mid-Year Mayhem. So I'll go out there earlier in the day and just try to get as many fights as I humanly possibly can. And I get some crazy stuff. Like, there's some people out there that really don't know what they're doing. It almost makes me feel bad at times. Because you'll get guys that are just light attacking you with, and you'll see their Reliquin procs, and you're just like, oh, dude, you're about to catch it, and you don't even know. Like, they've got 5 people, and they're like, oh, we can do it, guys, and they can't do it, and it's sad, and it makes me giggle sometimes. But definitely been doing a lot of PvP, probably 5 or 6 hours a day. Been teaming up with some other content creators and just other good players, working on some videos of some 2-man and 3-man stuff, and just kind of trying to use this opportunity to get some good clips for some entertaining videos down the line.
Do you have people that seek you out for PvP training?
I do have people that like to ask me a lot of questions. I've had a couple people, maybe 2 or 3, maybe 4, that say they would. I've actually had someone ask if I train people for PvP. It's not something I do. I can't do that. I'm not very good at explaining things. But if someone asks me a simple question, or a stream of questions that I can think of answers to, I definitely like to help. But when it comes to trying to train someone, I think that's a little bit beyond me. I've tried with one of my friends, and he's been my personal floor mat for many years. So I don't think I can put much credibility behind my training.
It's that's one of my loves right now is helping people train and get better at PvP. I really like coaching, so I didn't know if that was a service that you were making yourself available for.
It's something that I would, if I felt like I was better at helping people get better, then I would totally do it. But I don't know. I always feel like I don't actually help much. Maybe that's just a me thing. Maybe I'm wrong. I do know some people have said that things like my builds or just listening to my commentary has helped them. But I've never really had that one-on-one training kind of thing, except for with, like I said, a very small group of long-time friends who have not gotten any better at the game. So again, I don't feel like that lends towards my merits.
Yeah, don't they still need to put the time in, so don't it's not a reflection of you and your capabilities. Like, I'm a coach outside of this. I train athletes, and all you can do is point them in the right direction. They still need to do a lot of things to get there, and so you're only a part of the equation. So don't be too hard on yourself about that.
I got one. On the topic of coaching, do you think who people in general who are coaching in ESO, do you think they should charge X amount of gold, say 10K gold, 100K gold, whatever the fee is? Do you think that would help people like take it a little bit more seriously? Because I know that if I was paying for something, which I think I have in the past, some guy was in Stormhaven selling history lessons, and he was asking for 20K gold, and I took him up on it for about 30 minutes, and it was pretty interesting. And I know because I paid, I'm going to be very attentive and take notes and whatever because I just spent the money on this. Do you think that would help people? I guess. Well, I guess. Do you think it helped them get better, but then also take it a little bit more seriously if they want to actually improve and stuff? Because I know wanting to show up is one thing, but when you actually spend the gold for something, people they have skin in the game essentially.
I think that definitely would motivate the people that were seeking the training, but I also can't really see many people trying to charge because you've got people like Essential Vitamins who do it for free and stuff, you know? And I don't know. I feel like if you have the ability to train somebody and the desire to charge, I'm sure there is someone that will pay you and that will care. So if you can put yourself out there and offer a service for a price, people will take it a little more seriously. Definitely. They'll look at it as, a service that they are actively seeking out and paying for. So they've paid for it now. If they don't actively participate, then it's just wasted effort, wasted gold. So for sure, definitely. I just feel like there's just too many ways for them to avoid it, you know?
Yeah, I think you are onto something there. I see in the gym industry, because I'm a consultant outside of ESO, a coach, and all kind. I wear a lot of hats, but um, what they'll say is this: value in advance. So if you give them something like a nice red apple, something that's valuable to them, whatever it is, advice on their build, on their class, whatever it is, you give them something for free, and it's easier once you build that know, like, love, and trust factor with them to transition them to a paying customer. And so a lot of gym trainers, personal trainers, and just high level trainers, they use that value in advance system now. And that's something that's probably evolved over the past 5 years, and we'll see a lot more of it because on-site online training in the gym industry, online training is going to be huge over the next 2-3 years, because of COVID and everything else. So the guys that pivot their business model and change that, but not to get too far off subject, but yeah, value in advance is an important thing, and then transitioning them to pay for it. But for you, the guy was offering a service for paid, and you were like, well, I'm interested. And I wonder how many other people that day, or in the window that he was doing that, took him up on the offer. Was there a line waiting behind you, Icy?
Definitely not. I was the only person who shut up.
Right. He's like, I got one. I got a fish.
I
Yeah,
would
I
have
mean,
paid for his personally. It sounds like fun. I'm a big ESO or nerd personally. Just throwing that out there.
oh well, this wasn't actually ESO lore. Do you remember, Grim? I think we were gonna go into the sewers, but then I said, actually, I'm about to pay this guy 20K gold to teach me some like American history, so I'm gonna have to catch up with you a little bit later.
I totally remember, because I was like, what?
He was
Oh
like a
man.
proper history teacher. I thought you meant like some Elder Scrolls stuff. He was role playing a little bit, but no, like that's a hustle. I respect it.
Right.
Yeah, yeah, and I do like, it's kind of it's kind of funny because I hate school, but I love learning, and when people have knowledge that they want to share, I'm like super interested. So I figured, hey, I got the money, I got the gold, and he's got what I'm looking for, sort of. I wasn't really looking for a history on government, but hey, I thought it was pretty cool for 20 minutes.
Yeah, I definitely remember that. And hey, like you're saying, kudos to that guy. Like that's pretty creative, peddling his knowledge and services in ESO. So, what topics did you have? Any topics or anything that is at the tip of your mind right now? Like changes coming around. You said you think it's moving towards stat based builds, or you're going to wait and see. Like, what other topics you got?
Well, let's see. Stat-based builds. You guys want to talk about those? Have you guys? What do you guys typically prefer? Do you guys usually use stats or procs yourselves? Curious.
We are the proc masters. We have a secret channel that only select few people who have a hidden label have access to this proc set channel.
He is totally
That's
lying. I'm a stat-based guy. If you go look at any of my builds, it's always like New Moon and Shackle Breaker or Eternal Vigor. And yeah, it's not that I'm a purist. I'm actually incorporating procs into my build because if they're in the game, then we're going to use them. But I was very stat-based, and you weren't supposed to tell anybody about the hidden channel, Ozzy.
I mean, I still think we should do Crimson Night Saturday night, the last Saturday of every month. I think we should do that still.
Yeah, just 10 people running around with Crimson.
Yep, but just one night of the month on a Saturday night, the last Saturday of each month, Crimson Night. I think we should do it.
Can we be werewolves too?
You can be whatever you want as long as you're wearing crimson and you got the t-shirt on.
T-shirt, I like it. All right, so you mentioned a set that I've got some feelings on. You said Eternal Vigor. Do you feel like Eternal Vigor is an overperforming set in any way?
I feel like it fills a void. Until they made the changes to Amber Plasm, where they added a lot of this is on the Magicka side, obviously, but they added all the recoveries on that side, Magicka side through Amber Plasm. There wasn't a set out there that brought that type of recovery. Willow's Path, maybe, but there wasn't really Bone Pirate, maybe, if when you pair Bone Pirate with a drink. But there wasn't a set like Eternal Vigor. And now when you say I need some recoveries, and I have room for a second 5-piece, well, that's a no-brainer. I think you go with Eternal Vigor. So unless you're a Magicka and you can swing Amber Plasm, but yeah, I think when you're thinking recoveries or Eternal Vigor is probably the top dog.
I got you. See, I personally, as of late, I've been trying to remove Eternal Vigor from all of my builds because I've realized myself that lots of the builds that I've played that use Eternal Vigor are just absolutely over-sustaining, and I've had more success in fights after I started taking it off and replacing it with more damage or more utility. And I don't know. I feel like there's sets like that are really, really strong, but I feel like they take away a lot from you as well, potentially, because you're sacrificing a damage 5-piece or a tank, and a survivability 5-piece for some extra recovery, which you could get with a glyph or a food change. And I don't know, I feel like a lot of people are crutching on those kinds of sets. No, I've used them. I used it in a lot of builds. I've posted many builds using it, but I don't know, I feel like it is a little too powerful because of just how easy it is to think, oh, I need something on this build. What do I do? Oh, Eternal Vigor, duh. Like there's so many builds that use it. And I feel like that alone makes it stand out as a extremely potent set that might need a little bit of adjustment. How do you feel about adjusting Eternal Vigor?
I would be fine with that. If they were to adjust Eternal Vigor tomorrow, I mean, it's not the end of the world. I think, well, number one, I want to acknowledge, and is there no one else brought this up too, that how you build on console is different than how you build on PC. Like they're two different animals. And what you're running into build diversity wise is a little different. And I think he said this, and so did Nolan Kirchhoff that, you know, people build more into damage on console. And so running 2 5-piece weapon damage makes a lot of sense when they're coming from a console. It's not that you can't do it on PC. You can do it on PC, but you're just running into different things and it makes it harder to sustain. I say that some people sustain it just fine. So it really comes down to the player. For me, I have the best fighting outnumbered or fighting extreme conditions. If I were to run 2 5-piece weapon damage, I'll definitely kill some people if I get the drop on them. But as soon as the fight starts going long, or we have to sustain, or we have to kite them out or stretch them out, or we have to get into like pulling them into the sewers. And what I mean by stretch them out is, you know, this, if there's 10 people, sometimes I have to advance in the opposite direction, and the fast ones out of the 10 will keep up with me. And then I've created my 2v3 or 1v3, you know, to kill those guys. And now I like my chances against the remaining 6. And so, and I call that advancing in the opposite direction, because you totally have the intent of turning and burning, you know. It's just running away or retreating if you don't turn and burn. But Eternal Vigor was a set that allowed for those extended fights on PC. So
What
yeah,
would you? Oh, sorry. Would you like to keep going, Grim?
no, that's just what I noticed. So I could do it on 2 5-piece weapon damage, though. It just takes a maturation process with the 2 damage builds to get good at sustaining in the middle of the chaos.
I was gonna say, I like the word adjustment. How would you adjust Eternal Vigor, or what would be your recommendations? Because I know when people like to say, oh, what do they say? If you're gonna say there's a problem, you better have a solution, something
Yeah.
like that. So
You
what
know-
would be your recommendations for an adjustment on Eternal Vigor?
Well, I don't want to say nerf because it's a bad word, but honestly, I feel like the numbers just need to be toned down a little bit, because you get builds that, take a look at Wardens. They have things like Arctic Blast, which by itself is strong, but you throw Eternal Vigor on a Stamina Warden and they can Arctic Blast on demand whenever they want to, because they've got such a ridiculous amount of Magicka recovery. And I feel like that's just not exactly healthy. Also, I feel like it's not healthy for newer players, because I feel like all that extra sustain kind of instills bad habits into newer players that are getting into PvP, because they get so used to using abilities more willy-nilly. You know, they're like, oh, I can just do this 15 times in a row. There's no negative to this. And I feel like that's a bad thing, personally. Like, I like the fact that they're thinking about sustain, and they're not just thinking about what kind of damage proc can we do, what kind of how can we mix it up and make this fire dot, oh, poison dot instead. That sounds cool. But I like that they're mixing it up and adding in new interesting things. But I feel like things that just serve to do nothing but keep you alive longer without giving you any other real benefit aren't exactly healthy for the player base and for the game. And what was the thing they say on the server, on the forums, like player behaviors? I feel like they're not impacted in a positive way because of sets like that. Because I like to refer to them as stalemate sets, because both players are going to infinitely sustain while not really doing too much damage to each other, and then it's just going to be a fight that goes on for 20 minutes. You waste 10, 15, 30 pots, and then you walk away. And I don't know. I like it better when people die, personally. And I feel like sets like Eternal Vigor don't really facilitate that. They just kind of bring out the long game and make it less fun and too easy at times. I don't know. So bring the numbers down just a little bit. Maybe cut the health recovery in half, because the health recovery is kind of nuts. I'm going to be real. I've used it on a lot of builds, and getting up to 7,000 health recovery is a little crazy, especially on things like werewolves, but that's an entirely different topic.
Yeah, they might actually do that too, because you saw that they're adding a cap to Alessian. Yeah, so they might visit that Beekeeper and Orgnum Scales and take a look at health recovery in that regard. You know, one negative thing that a couple people did say about Eternal Vigor and why they avoid the set was they said, well, I got the recoveries while I'm above 50%, but I spend more of my time below 50% and all I get is health recovery. That's not going to help me, you know? And they're like, when I need that recoveries the most, I lose it when I'm under 50%. And so I think that's probably also that's the goal in PvP. If you're fighting somebody that's wearing it, is get them below 50%. But that's how you beat that person. The same way you beat Crimson by just not being in the explosion and making sure that NPCs aren't in it too. Like if you're fighting a werewolf and the werewolf runs into the other room, first thing you do is clear the mobs, and then try and burn the werewolf, that's wearing Crimson in that room. So before he realizes he needs to run to another room, there's ways around the sets, but I would be okay if they adjusted it. Yeah. I mean, do you think that your double damage sets though are the equalizer to somebody that's wearing that?
Yes and no, because it depends on the class they're on. If they're on something like a Warden, where they have extremely potent survivability skills and utility skills, odds are they won't even drop below 50% more often than not, because they have such great sustain with sets like that on, to where they never really get caught in a situation where they can't cast whatever ability they need to do to stay in the green. And if they do, then they've got that health recovery, which it's crazy. Health recovery is nuts. And I don't know. I feel like with all that sustain, they don't really ever find themselves in a bad situation, or at least not anywhere near as often. And if they do, they just hold block, get the health recovery, pop their Arctic Blast, and they're good to go.
Yeah, they're adjusting that heal too, Arctic Blast, right? All health-based heals, or at least that's the talk right now. Have you heard that?
I'm sorry. Can you give me like 2 seconds?
Yeah, no problem.
Very sorry, guys. Just a minute.
I think I've heard it, or I know we've spoken about it with a few other people, at least within our circles, that addressing health-based heals might actually be a thing. I'm personally not looking for it because I love playing on my Warden, but if it happens, it happens. Life ain't fair.
Yeah. I always think that with new players, it's always better to lean on the side of recoveries, because at the end of the day, the first thing they need to focus on is staying alive, and that's where their experience is going to come from. A lot of people, there's like multiple ways that people learn. Some people are very visual, like they could sit on the sidelines and watch. I have this with the gym, in the gym industry. There are some kids that could sit off to the side and watch you show how to do an arm bar 3 times, how to do a leg triangle 3 times, how to do the different transitions and, the different setups for these submissions. They could sit over to the side and watch it, and then they understand it and grasp it, and then they can execute it. And there's some kids that won't learn that way, and they actually need to feel it. They need to actually apply the armbar or leg triangle. They need to execute the move that you're saying. And I think that a lot of people in PvP and ESO will learn from just being in the fight and staying alive, even if they're not being effective in killing somebody. I think there is probably a turning point where it becomes just annoying. Like, this person ain't ever going to kill anybody, but we can't kill them, and then it becomes like bad for the game, so.
Yeah. And I guess, what do I want to say here? What I would like to see, I know in other games, I'll just say League of Legends for an example. I think there's some websites where you can access the usage per champion across all the servers and stuff. So you could see, oh, in the North American region, this champion has about 70%, 70% of the games played. And then on the bottom end, this person or this champion's got the least amount of games played. And then you'll see a pattern across the world in all these different areas on who's the most popular, who's got a higher win rate, things like that. I would like to know, or I'm not sure if this is even possible. I feel like I might have heard Zoss say that it is, but what's like the usage or whatever sort of KPI that they would need of what gear sets actually get used and which ones don't. And then I guess making some adjustments based around that. Because if you have, say, one particular champion with say, we'll have a 65% win rate. Okay, we'll just say that's like super high. And everybody else, the next highest person is, say, 58%. I can probably guarantee you that person at 65% is going to be adjusted negatively so that they can be more in line with everybody else. So I'd be curious to see if there was a way you can do that with all the gear in Elder Scrolls and see if there's like a pattern like, hey, yeah, in PvP 98 or we'll say 65% of the player base is actually using Crimson. We should probably do something about that. Or say 52% of people are using Eternal Vigor in PvP. And
Yeah.
that seems to be more in line with all the other gear sets. So we're going to say that's in a good place.
Yeah, that would be really cool to see if they actually are able to track it like that and not so much lean on the forums, to see what people are complaining about. I don't know how they go about it. I'm just, from what I understand, that if there's a large enough complaint about it in the forums, then it's something that gets adjusted. So,
And then equally, just because people are complaining about it because of their feelings, right? There's your feelings, and then there's also the stat sheet that ZOS has access to. So a lot of people complain about Crimson, but only 30% of the player base is actually using Crimson. So you're still going to nerf it even though less than 50% are actually using it? For example, of course.
right. Yeah. I don't know. I would imagine those numbers are out there somewhere. Wouldn't it be cool that if they shared those numbers?
Yeah, I think it'd be pretty neat, especially for the nerds out there.
Right. Yeah. I don't know. We'd always talked about this before. We'll wait until he gets back, but we had talked about it before that um, with newer players on PC, leaning them towards the side of sustain, so that way they at least have the regen to stay in the fight, and just focus on staying alive, and staying in the dance. That way you can experience PvP, and then as they get better with the build, they start leaning more into the damage, and then final end game would probably ideally be two weapon damage sets or two proc sets or whatever it is. Proc sets are generally lower sustain just because of the different proc sets that are out right now, and you have to invest in sustain. And proc sets don't scale off of your weapon damage or spell damage. They can be adjusted by Malakath, like we were talking earlier, in CP or whatever. But yeah, it's kind of interesting. So interesting to see what he's running into regularly, what we're running into. So
Yeah, and I know since I guess I'm still kind of like a new player, but I know when I first started PvP, it was a struggle trying to just live through these fights and get that PvP experience that I needed where I can actually become a good player. And I think I think it was about this time last year, like February going into March, where I was starting to create my own build a little bit and then starting to gravitate more towards like a tanky type role. And then because I know I can't remember my exact words, but I just needed to be more tanky. And then I would invest in I think I remember running Thervacun, Impregnable, and some other set. I forget what it was. It might have been even Harbingers too back then before it was cool. And just so I could, whenever we're running together and we get into a PvP fight, because I know I would always get killed immediately for the most part, I would have my I would have my gear set up so to give myself as much damage mitigation as possible that I can actually live, and so that when they jump on me and they realize they can't hurt me too much, and they go back to you, then I can start doing my stuff. And I mean, it makes sense, but I guess going back to what Kuroyuki was saying with I guess in terms of Eternal Vigor, should you adjust a set based on what the good players are saying, or based on what I don't want to say crybabies, but I guess like the PvEers?
Plebs, is that yeah,
Yeah, the plebs. Yeah, the
yeah, if it was
plebs.
zero would say plebs, right?
Yeah. So who's Eternal Vigor helping the most? Is it we'll say the Grim Hollows that are just unkillable for the most part, that are using Eternal Vigor, and the sustain is providing them so much that they just can't die? But then again, I know he doesn't use it. I'm pretty sure he doesn't. They go more damage route because they want to kill people. They want to kill the good players. And so is that where you want to make the adjustment? Or I feel like my thoughts a little bit incomplete here.
Well,
Let me sit on it a little bit.
I know that it would feel way different if you ran into a group of 10 that are all wearing Eternal Vigor, as opposed to running into a group of 10 that are all wearing 2 damage sets, right? That clashing with that group would feel way different.
I kind of want to see us, like those simulations on YouTube that people do now with 300 Spartans versus a dragon or
Right.
something ridiculous. That'd be kind of interesting. 10 Eternal Vigor and whatever users versus 10 other people with damage sets.
Yeah.
How would that play out?
Yeah, it'd be interesting. So, are you back?
I am. I'm sorry about that. My grandma was insane.
Oh, no problem. What was that?
I said my grandmother is insane.
Oh, okay. As she looks at you from across the room.
Now, luckily, she's downstairs. But she had, I had to make her a new phone password, and she kept on choosing ones that weren't strong enough.
There you go.
Hey man, there's nothing wrong with 00007777 and 1234. Just saying.
That's entirely valid. I respect that.
Plus, also, we're not even talking about ESO anymore. We're talking about phones. I try to. I'm not going to give away my password, but hey man, it's what are the where you going to lose your phone? I feel like you just gotta make it as easy as a password as you can, and then just stick with that. Because your phone gets stolen, it's stolen. Nothing much you're gonna do about that, I don't think.
That's true.
Yeah. So
What it
hey,
was
man.
the iTunes, so I had to go do like a real full password.
Oh yeah, okay, yeah, that's legit. That's legit.
So we were just discussing the difference between Eternal Vigor and 2 damage sets, and for us, like what I teach the new players is that they should lean on the side of sustain, and so Eternal Vigor works really well for that. So that way they can at least stay in fights. They have an opportunity to stay in fights longer. Some classes sustain better than others too. You know that to be true. So Eternal Vigor is not even needed on some classes, and like on a Stam DK, Eternal Vigor. Yeah.
Oh, go ahead. I was just affirming.
Like on a Stam DK, Eternal Vigor is not even needed, because your Battle Roar passive, if a lot of people can sustain on Stam DKs just fine through Battle Roar and potions, and so doubling up on your damage output is fine. But and then other people can't play Stam DK very well, and they need to put Eternal Vigor on there just to get to the next ultimate. So who knows? But anyways, all the new players that I'm training, that's what we do, is lean towards the side of sustain. I don't necessarily tell them to wear Eternal Vigor, but if you're going to wear 2 damage sets, you should figure out what your primary spammable is and what your rotation, your most common rotation to get people out is, and then figure out where your recovery needs to be at to sustain that rotation against 2 or 3 consecutive targets, because if you're completely out of resources after you kill your first target and you're scraping the bottom of the barrel, you're going to get killed, and in a BG situation, 1 death equals one of the videos that we're coming up and talking about is time on target. And if somebody is going 4 and 4 in a BG first thing we do is trying to start eliminating some of the deaths. So we're figuring out what's causing the deaths. They're out of position, they're not sustaining, they're getting stam checked, whatever it is. If we eliminate one death, it gives them that time back that A, they were being killed, B, they're respawning, and C, they're running back to the fight. And so all that time might equate to 1, 2, or 3 kills. And so now all of a sudden by eliminating one death, we might go from having a 4 and 4 BG to, a 10 and 3 BG just by eliminating one death. Well, what happens if we eliminate 2 deaths and 3 deaths? And so it becomes a sweet spot that you got to figure out. And like you said, when you're over sustaining. Most new players don't even know when they're over sustaining. And so what'll happen is they have no problem staying in the fight for an extended period, but they're not killing anyone or putting anyone away. And it's a really annoying situation. So, and those people are good for staying alive. They're good as using them as a meat shield, and shaving damage off of, but you can't expect them to secure kills. And so that's what I've noticed. So at least working with new players.
Yeah, it's definitely like a balancing act and learning your class, I suppose. Like you said about Dragonite, I did use Eternal Vigor on Dragonite at one point. Had about almost 2,000 stamina recovery, but I have since changed my build. Now I have 700 stamina recovery on my Dragonite, and I am doing way better in fights than I was before because I'm using Daedric Trickery and Bloodspawn. So I get major heroism from that. Bloodspawn, Nord, and I'm just generating ultimate extremely quickly and learning to sustain that way. So I guess it does definitely come down to learning how to sustain on your specific class. And I guess in that regard, using Eternal Vigor as a kind of, I guess like a segue set to learn, to help you sustain while you're learning the class could be viewed as a good thing.
Yeah, that right there, just as a segue. So, or if you're bad with the class, I'm not good with stam DKs, and so I have a hard time sustaining on them. So Eternal Vigor, is the answer for me. But then it's like, well, where do I get the damage from to get people out? I got to work a little bit harder than if I had 2 damage sets, and so I'm accepting that trade-off. But hey, Daedric Trickery, that's awesome. Icy is a fan because he's a fan of Daedric Trickery.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I got a little
Trickery gang.
statue. I got a little statue of Shiogura that sits on my table. It's pretty cool.
Yeah, you guys pray at the same altar, so.
Heck yeah.
Che Gorath is a man. Like,
So, what's your wish list for future ESO? What are you looking forward to with the changes, or do you have anything that's off script that you wish ESO would implement?
well, I actually made a video about this myself recently, and one of the major things I had in that video was actually just addressed in the PTS and whatnot, and that was the CP changes. Like, because they had said they wanted them they were going to do it for a long, long time, and then we finally got them. So, like, that was one of my big ticket items right there. Aside from that, though, looking away from balance, looking away from sets, looking away from lag, because I don't like to dwell on those kinds of things because that's not the kind of stuff we can really be positive about ever. It's always oh, the performance sucks, hope that gets better. But I would rather think about more positive things. So when it comes to a wish list, the things that I would really like to see, the number one thing would be a new weapon type of some kind. Personally, like, I feel like that alone would just ridiculously increase the amount of build diversity we got. I don't care if it's some kind of like a wand that you could dual wield or use with like a sword and shield, or like a pole arm type weapon. You could have the same effects from like the heavy weapons where each kind does a different thing. You could have like halberds and what do they call them? Quarter staves and spears, that kind of stuff. Mix it up. I don't know. I just feel like that a new weapon would be awesome. I feel like we've had everything else. We've had new classes, new guild skill lines, new crafting skill lines. Why not a new weapon?
I'd
Yeah.
like to see some investment in unarmed combat, because obviously when you take off your weapons, you're just down to your bare hands, and you can punch things and do a heavy attack and all that stuff with it. That's pretty awesome. And in Skyrim, I think you could do some unarmed builds. I think, or I know there were some passives that increase the amount of damage that you can do. And I know Khajiits were actually they did more damage because of their claws in Skyrim because of it. So I think that would be a pretty. I think I well not that, I think it would be awesome if they introduced a, I guess, what would you call it, brass knuckles weapon
Some kind of
skill
faced
line.
weapon.
Yeah, just like something that you can. I guess brass knuckles. Yeah, you could just put them in every single style that there is in the game, which I think would be a lot of work already. But you would just put them on there and then freaking go hard in the paint and make some Mike Tyson and whatever builds.
Heck
I think
yeah!
that'd be
Then
kind
I
of
can
cool.
make my Bruce Lee, and I can make my Wolverine. That would be awesome.
Yeah, if we could kick, that'd be pretty sweet.
Oh, for sure. I actually mentioned that in my video. I was like, "Would the pugilist need some love, man?"
Yeah, I watched that video. It was very good.
Thank you.
Are you a Alicization fan?
As in Sword Art Online,
Yeah.
I watched the first like 6 or 7 episodes.
Okay, I've only heard that term pugilist from the show,
Oh,
so I figured,
okay.
yeah.
Well, I first heard the term pugilist playing Skyrim because there's an item called the gloves of the pugilist, and I was like, well, what the heck does that mean? And it's just like an unarmed fighter type person. So
Oh, okay, nice.
So as far as closing statements, where can everybody find you at? Like, obviously YouTube, but and what about Patreon? Where can we find you? YouTube, Patreon. Am I missing anything? What else we got?
I got YouTube, I got Patreon, and I have Twitch, and all of them are the same thing. Slash Kuroyuki ESO. So youtube.com slash Kuroyuki ESO, Twitch slash Kuroyuki ESO, Patreon slash Kuroyuki ESO. That's where I am. That's where you can find me. No spaces, nothing like that. It's the same. I'm very uniform, very boring. But if you want to find me, you can catch me there. I try to stream PvP at least 2 hours a day. I know that's not as much as some people, but I do try to do it daily. At least, try to be active. I try to post on YouTube once a week. That hasn't gone great so far, but we're working on it. And Patreon exists. I've never done anything with it. It's there if anyone cares to acknowledge the fact that it exists. Honestly, I don't even know why I have it, but it's there. So that's about that.
Yeah, so everybody should visit your Patreon, try and help out the channel, help you grow. Hit the like and subscribe button on your YouTube, and then figure out what your schedule is on Twitch so they can drop in and say hi.
Yes, please. Pretty much most of the donations that I get go to spoiling my dog Toby. So keep that in mind. He's a happy little pupper.
There you go. You got anything, Icy?
I do not. Are we ready to do the closeout?
I think. Do you have anything for us?
I think I'm all good now.
Awesome. So with that said, we'll see you guys on the next one. See ya.
Take care.
See ya. You're going to say bye-bye, Argonians.
Bye bye, Rogonian.